But
we could go to a Legacy SCG Open every week
it
if we
felt
wanted
like
to.
you could go constantly. Yeah.
Every month there was an SCG Open with a Legacy event on the East Coast somewhere.
Yeah.
Every
you could
month.
go to Worcester. You could
just
go
be
to
like,
Richmond.
oh yeah, we'll go.
Yeah.
Where are we going in February? Oh yeah, we'll lock out that weekend for March next month. That's great. Like that was routine. It was like you knew every 4 weeks. You weren't hoping that your local was going to do a 1K. You were like, I'm going to the SCG Open.
Yeah. Hey, I just want to give a quick shout out to all of our Patreon supporters out there. Thank you to the Dirtle Maniacs. If you want to be a Dirtle Maniac, go to patreon.com/eternaldurtles and help support the channel. It keeps things going. It keeps things updated. Thanks so much for watching. On with the show. So, Phil, I was thinking about how, when I came back to Magic, there was a lot that I did know. But there was a lot of things that, like, as an adult, I was 32 by then, and I was thinking about what would I have done differently when I came back into the game, to optimize, to like be where I am now, but like be better, right? And I look at where I started, like the mindset I had when I started playing the game again, and the mindset I have now, and if I could go back and be like, you should have known, this or that or the other thing. That's kind of where this video is kind of coming from. This is the point of this video, is like, if I could go back to 2012 and tell my 32-year-old self, hey, beware, like get ready, and I think the number one thing I would tell myself, and I still would tell myself this now if I was getting into Legacy. So if you are someone new to Legacy, I would tell you this now. There's the best time to buy dual lands was yesterday. The second best time to buy dual lands is right now, right? Like the price of dual lands just keeps going up and up and up, and they're never going to go down, unless something crazy happens. And if you want to play Legacy, invest in dual lands first.
Yeah, that seems pretty.
It's very basic, right? Like,
yeah. I think the crazy thing that happens, I think, is at any point when they want to remove Legacy from essentially like a WotC controlled format, that it then moves into an area where pretty much all Legacy events are, however long in the future that is, but like eventually all Legacy events are proxy friendly.
Almost, Phil. And I want to counter you on that, because obviously, Eternal Weekend is one of the main, like, hey, this one's not proxy friendly, right? But we have just seen at Hartford, SCG Hartford or whatever, that they're not allowing gold border cards for the pre-modern tournaments because they're technically proxies, right? And that's not a format that is supported by Wizards of the Coast, but because SCG and Wizards of the Coast have this agreement or whatever. So the two biggest tentpole kind of events that Legacy players play, Phil, is SCG and Eternal Weekend. So that might not necessarily be true.
Well, I think that's also because SCG right now collaborates with WotC, and Legacy is still under WotC's umbrella as like.
But this is a pre-modern event that was taking place at.
Right, but it's hosted by a company that like
for
needs
sure.
to, but like,
and their model is selling cards, obviously too.
Yeah, but like I'm saying that like once we get into a world where like, okay, yeah, LobsterCon like lets all those the gold borders and stuff are allowed there, right?
Yeah, of course.
So in that regard, it's like, okay, yeah, there's still, Tales of Adventure is still over, selling cards at that event, and people still want cards, but like,
of course,
it is not a requirement to have the most, the actual Gaia's Cradles. You can have the gold border Gaia's Cradles, I believe. But like, I think that like that's one of two worlds where it wouldn't be smart to buy dual lands, but that's like, who knows when that is. So like, yeah, I agree that you buy dual lands before, buy dual lands now. And then the other possibility is at any point they could just be like, yeah, we're just removing the original dual lands from Commander. That way we can help subsidize the eternal formats where these cards are actually required, and by that then the prices will crater to some degree. There's still an amount of like, okay, collectability, these cards hold value, but like if the market was suddenly flooded with all of the Commander players dual lands, because like that's the reason why dual lands are expensive. So it's like if the market was just suddenly overwhelmed by all these dual lands hitting the market, that there just wouldn't be enough Legacy players to buoy that value, and so it would be a lot easier to get your dual lands. If that, like, that's the other possibility. And
I think you highly underestimate the amount of dual lands that exist versus the amount of EDH players that proxy everything.
Right, but I'm saying that the EDH players that don't is still so overwhelming to
Probably, yeah.
boost the price of dual lands that, like, I don't think dual lands price going up and up and up over time is as correlated to, hey, yes, it's just older and these cards are becoming more collector's items versus how many more players are entering the game via commander and then want to be able to have like the best version of the deck that they can have possible. And the barrier of getting, it's like, oh yeah, I play my Dimir commander deck or whatever, the threshold of getting a singular underground sea versus a set of underground seas is a very stark difference. So like somebody be like, yeah, I can get my one underground sea because that's all I need for my deck, and cool. Whereas like that the threshold being 4 times that for a legacy player is a lot steeper. You know what I mean? But like I also don't think that necessarily that the possibility of that ever happening like will happen. But it is the other thing that would get dual lands prices to come back down. Anyway,
Finding the right high-end cards for legacy, vintage, pre-modern, or old school Magic can be challenging. That's where friends 3-for-1 trading come in.
3-for-1 Trading is one of Europe's top Magic the Gathering retailers with an incredible selection of premium singles, sealed product, and even full sets, all available with free, fast, and secure worldwide shipping.
They add fresh inventory every Wednesday with weekly deals and discounts. So whether you're hunting for that elusive piece of power, a legacy staple, or something spicy for your collection, they've got you covered.
First high-end orders over $500 or €500, use the code EDFREE to get free worldwide shipping.
Check them out now at the number 3, the number 4, the number 1.gg/ED. That link takes you right to the shop and helps support the channel.
Huge thanks to 3-for-1 Trading for supporting the legacy community. Now back to the show.
right, getting back on track.
Yeah. So the second thing, Phil, I would say to myself would be to really cultivate my community for specifically the format I want to play. So like for Legacy, I think I did an okay job of that when I started playing Legacy, but I wasn't a diehard to go to weeklies, and eventually, 20 Side Store closed for the intents and purposes of us playing Legacy there. And then I didn't have any way to play my cards unless I went to, either I had to prohibitively expensively take a car or time wasted on a train to get to a place that I wanted to play, or I just had to like play on Moto, and I think both those are fine options, but really, like, if you have a local that does Legacy, you really need to cultivate that. And I think that I made I would love to say I was young, but I was like in my mid-30s. I think we did a bad job of onboarding new people. I think looking back then that the average Legacy player felt in some way superior to the modern players. And we played modern too, but we would be like, like Legacy's the real format, modern players. And I think that gave a stigma to some people that would have wanted to play Legacy, that kept them out of the format. And I think we also did a really bad job of being like good liaisons to the format. And so when 20 Side Store stopped doing Legacy events, there was I ended up going to a place where 3 people would show up every week, and it was me, Richard Busey, and Tony Lohman. Every Thursday, I think, we would show up at this basement that was like a Smash dungeon in Manhattan. Nebulous Games, it was called. And every week we basically exchanged $15 with each other over every time, right? And that really taught me that, like, had I done a better job at cultivating a community, we would have found a better place to play. And now, one thing I will say is that we did have a community. So like, Roland Chang and Dave Kaplan and those guys started hosting events, and that's kind of where the whole pre-modern thing kind of took off for New York as well. So they started hosting events at places that weren't, too far away to get to for a lot of players. Cause like you used to live in Queens. Now you live in Bed-Stuy. How much of a pain in the butt is it to go to Queens from Bed-Stuy?
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt, but
yeah, you do it, But how much greater would it have been if you could have played in some place that was like in Williamsburg, right? Like, especially from like a 20-minute bike ride versus like a 20-minute cab ride, and the extra $40-50 you have to spend to do it. Giant difference. And I think that I made the mistake of not just cultivating, like, it wasn't just on me to cultivate that community, but I think I could have done a better job as a role model to other people in that community to keep it going.
Yeah. For community building, shout out to the crew in Nashville. When I was in Nashville for a little while, there was a Legacy event every other week It was bi-weekly, and it was sort of a trap because it was like, wait a minute, was it this week? Is it the week after? I don't even remember which week is it. And then also committing 2 weeks in advance was pretty tough. And I remember when first getting in, there was a community of legacy players there, and it was like, but it was only every other week, and I was like, yo, like, I don't know if you guys are like trying to make this happen every week, but if we coordinate, like, I don't know the shop owners all that well yet, but like, if we coordinate with the shop to like, see how doing it every week would work. And then there was like the players that were like, sort of the backbone of the legacy community and had the relationship to the store, like worked it out, and then it became every week, and then we were there every week, and it was awesome.
Makes a huge difference. Yeah.
Makes a huge difference. And then people were like, well, I can't commit to it every week because who knows, but like if it was every week, like I would absolutely try and come, and then,
every week it'll be there for you, right? Like I think that's the big thing is like
your emotional safety support of having a weekly legacy event.
Yeah, well, I actually, I did my due diligence. I will say, when 20-sided Store stopped doing events, I went to Brooklyn Strategist, and I presented them. I was like, look, we can do this. Like, I can guarantee that a certain amount of people will show up. But because it was every week and it was a brand new shop that everyone had to go to, new travel plans and everything, they want to do it every 2 weeks. And of course, people just were like, I don't know if it's this week or last week, and I don't want to figure it out, and I'm not going to do it. So you can't underestimate the laziness of people to like start up a new thing. Once it's going, like everyone will be like, yeah, I'm going in, we're going to go there. But the every 2 week things was a little tough. And I'm actually having that problem right now with my current local. They just stopped doing their monthlies because they're like, no one's showing up. And it's like, yeah, well, the format's been kind of crap for a while. So like that becomes an issue.
Eternal Dirtles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield.com. Moxfield is the best deck building website on the internet. You can find all of my and Phil's decks in links below, including decks from this episode. And if you do, you'll be directly supporting the channel.
So
that is also like, no, is it in that regard, I think like in addition to like building the community, I think part of that is whatever store is aligned with what your goals are, or finding the store that would be open to aligning themselves with the goals of being able to fill something out like a legacy weekly. Because there was at one point one of the stores in Manhattan, Bifrost, they used to do 2K monthlies, and then they stopped doing the 2Ks because they were like, nobody's showing up to the 2Ks. And I was like, what are you talking about? When was there a 2K? And they were like, and it was just a matter.
It's a little bit of that. It's a little bit. It was a matter of like,
for
sure.
It was people weren't showing up to the 2Ks because they didn't know when they were happening. Like, I am as entrenched as you can get in like the New York legacy scene. And if there's a major monthly legacy event, like you best believe your boy's gonna try and sling a terminus at it. And I just didn't know it was happening. And so I was like, you guys, like, I don't necessarily come to the locals every week because it's an expensive 3-rounder, but like that, you can't only announce that the monthlies are happening at a weekly and then nowhere else, and then expect for people to show up if they're not showing up to the weekly. Like that's totally different. But like, I will make the trek for a 1K or a 2K.
And that's where the community building comes in, too.
But that's where the community building comes in.
You find that out in the NYC Eternal Facebook chat, right? Like, it's one of the few reasons I still have Facebook is because there are some communities on there that thrive in those Facebook groups. So you still have to keep track of those. But that actually leads me to my third thing, Phil, is that I would have prioritized going to big events, which I don't think I did enough. I often would skip an SCG if it was local, just because I was like, well, I was a bartender at the time, so working on the weekends was like, that was when I made a lot of my money and stuff. But I think I would have prioritized going to larger events and practicing for those larger events, making that a bigger part of my regimen. And I do that now. Like, that's what we do for like Eternal Weekend. We, the 100 games thing that we do, the 100 matches thing that we do before Eternal Weekend, playing it out, all that sort of stuff, making those events feel like they're events to travel to, feel like it's a thing that you want to do, I think is a very big thing that I would have told my younger self. Like, don't drop from these tournaments when you go, one, because they don't happen very often, so you want to, squeeze all the juice out of them. You want to wring it out, right? But you just want to have these to look at as like this moment in time that you had, especially because oftentimes we're traveling with friends, you get to have these like moments with your friends, or we go places, maybe you save someone's life along the way.
Yeah, maybe somebody is on the cusp of death and you reanimate them. You're making me think of, I didn't go to Grand Prix Seattle in, I think it was 2018.
Yeah.
But it was at the time.
That was the last Legacy Grand Prix, apparently.
But we didn't know at the time, right? But I did not, like, I remember, like, all of my friends went to Seattle. At the time, I didn't go to Seattle because I was essentially between jobs, so I was gig working. And so I was like, and the cost of flying cross country plus all of the stuff. And then I also like didn't have time to practice because I was gig working. And so it's like, I remember thinking like, no, I'll just go to the next one. Like, this is not worth it. Like, I'm not going to do well. And it's a cross country flight, so it's more expensive. I'm not going to, play at my best because I don't have an optimized thing, even if you give me a list. This was right after, like, Top Miracles was banned in 2017. So it's like, 2018, like it was still like, who knows?
You were still trying to figure out what you even wanted to play.
Who knows where we're even going?
Yeah.
So it was like, there was just so many variables on top of it being a financial burden at the time that I was like, I'm going to skip this one. But I still,
that's like, something I've sort of learned in my dotage, Phil, is when I was talking to Victoria, my wife, we're really trying this year, and this is a great shout out to Patreon if you want to support us on Patreon, but we're really trying this year to figure out a way that both of us can go, you and I can go to a second Eternal Weekend, right? And I was talking to Victoria, and she's like, we got to start putting money aside for that if we're going to do that and everything. And I told her point blank, I was like, look, if I have to take out a credit card so that we can do this, I'd rather do that, because and I would rather go into debt for a travel experience that like I remember for the rest of my life versus like, buying the new Nintendo Switch or whatever, right? Like, things don't really translate for the rest of your life, whereas like experiences do. And so for me, like, if I take out a $5,000 credit card and we max that credit card out going to a Eternal Weekend in another country, and even if I scrub out, like, we're gonna have an experience. We're gonna have like a thing that we and it will be a legitimately fun travel time, and I can spend the next 5 years paying that off, right?
Dear listener, I want you to know that while you, listener, royal listener, and I are in agreement with Zach that experience is certainly more valuable than material, I too agree that we will make sure that nobody is taking out a credit card and paying the interest on that credit card to go play nerd cards across the world. Though we will bring you the content.
Yeah, that is the plan. I mean, we're going there to bring people content. Like the thing that I think is the most valuable about that is getting to give people an idea of what it's like to go to a second Eternal Weekend, which is the thing that I like. I felt like if I had experienced, like, Bosch did a great job, right? Like he went to one, scrubbed out. I think he made it to like the 4th round, dropped, and then because he lived in town, he was like, I'll just drop and whatever. And then he learned his lessons that weekend, and then like the next weekend or 2 weekends later, he went to Europe and top 8'd the damn thing. So like, come on, like, I think that's a great fun story, and there's something I think there's something there to share, right? Like, I wouldn't be like, hey, please pay for me to go to Europe if I didn't think that there was like a thing to do. So eternaldurdles.com, Eternal Durdles Patreon. That's patreon.com/eternaldurdles. If you want to help us make that run, even $1 helps us there. So there's that. Just watching the video, liking, subscribing to the video helps. So
yeah, 50% of the 56% of people who listen to us aren't subscribed. Now, here's the deal, fam. Do you know how many, like, it is now a goal of mine to terminus somebody's board in every country on Earth.
All right, well, we got to get started. So, Phil, my fourth thing is actually kind of tied to this, is that I didn't know what I was getting into with Legacy, right? So I would have been more aware, I should say, of Eternal Weekend. I would be like, that's our Pro Tour, right? Because I spend a lot of time playing other formats, focusing on draft for and look, Magic being played is good, right? I think Bosch once told me the greatest way to lose Magic depression is by playing Magic. Like, if you're depressed about your deck or whatever, just play more Magic. But for me, I think that I didn't realize that Eternal Weekend was as special as it was, especially when it was in Philadelphia.
It wasn't. At the time, it wasn't.
No, it was. The first time I went to Eternal Weekend, it was in Philadelphia because it was the true name Nemesis.
No, but
time.
I'm saying that right now, like the clout of Eternal Weekend has grown over time as the other major legacy events have fallen off. Like
Yeah.
once Legacy Grand Prix were gone, then Eternal
Oh,
Weekend
yeah.
started like you know what I mean? Like there was a time I distinctly remember where getting people to like discuss going to Eternal Weekend was much more of a hurdle because the
Because you had Grand
prestige that
Prix, you know.
right, yeah, like the prestige that a Legacy Weekend had was like for all the people that like just were not like interested in the Grand Prix. It was like much more casual. Like the stigma around it was not like this is a competitive event that everybody like practices for or whatever. No, it was like, you know, with all due respect, it was the Nick Fit of legacy events.
Fair,
You know what I mean?
Fair, yeah, yeah.
But like not to downplay it, it's still a sweet event, but it was not the prestigious event that it is now across like the 3 events that happen across the world. So like at the time to be like, oh yeah, I didn't value it. That's okay at the time because it wasn't valued by the community at large to the same degree that it is now. Of course, it was still valued. It was a cool event, but it was not a cool event in the way that it is now. I remember when Eternal Weekend or like the events that would happen in Pennsylvania as well. And like, you know, it was cool. I remember like, you know, I was the altar guy back then too. And I remember being like, oh yeah, there's like, you can find like the sweet as fuck altars at Eternal Weekend. And that is not true anymore. It's just like the altars do not come out at Eternal Weekend anymore. All the old school stuff comes out at Eternal Weekend, but not like the cool, weird, like you see, like you'll see some of it, but you'll see much fewer like miscut type stuff, like the sort of misfit toys of Magic that was Eternal Weekend at the time is a lot less so than it is now. Now you find that stuff at Magic Cons. Like you'll find like the weird unique stuff because like the game as a collectible whole or whatever is different at Magic Cons where they're trying to appease to everybody in the casual spaces, and that's just more of a casual thing. But that at the time Legacy was also much more of a casual thing. But like nowadays Legacy is casual in the aggregate, but it is not casual to the people who play. Like we agree and understand that it is a casual format in terms of like WotC's perception of it, but it is not in terms of like the amount of time and devotion that we prescribe to it and how we like then treat the major events that surround it. So the world is different now than it was then because of the support that Legacy had at the time.
Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button. It grows the legacy content ecosystem we all love by relaying to the platform that you are part of our passionate community.
And to go even further, click the links for subscription or to support directly via Patreon to help us create more content for you. Patreon supporters get 4 exclusive extra episodes per month. If you're listening on an audio platform, head over to patreon.com/eternaldurdles.
Thanks so much for your support.
We'll see you in the next one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think you're right. But
we could go to a Legacy SEG Open every week.
It
if we
felt
wanted
like
to.
you could go constantly. Yeah.
Every month there was an SEG Open with a Legacy event on the East Coast somewhere.
Yeah.
Every
you could
month.
go to Worcester. You could
just
go to
be like,
Richmond.
oh yeah, we'll go.
Yeah.
Where are we going in February? Oh yeah, we'll lock out that weekend for March next month. That's great. Like that was routine. It was like you knew every 4 weeks. You weren't hoping that your local was going to do a 1K. You were like, I'm going to the SEG Open.
Yeah. So then I guess for my final one, Phil, final one's kind of twofold, right? I think I would have spent a little less time on non-legacy formats, really specialize. But I think I would have taken that time, you'd say, well, what are you going to do with that time, right? I wouldn't have taken that time and played more legacy. I would have focused on myself and my career and because ultimately that would have allowed me to, as I am the age I am now, spend more time playing Magic instead of trying to hustle to live. But I say all that to say this, that's like a half measure. I would have spent more time collecting the singles that the format needed, like that you need to play in the format, as opposed to buying boxes. I spent a lot of time buying sealed product. And I think the last time I really bought sealed product that I was like, I need to buy sealed product was the Lord of the Rings set. I bought like one collector box. But I think that buying singles, look, that's a meme at this point, buy singles. But I think every time we put out a set of we reviewed this set, I don't always buy all of those singles because I'm like, I'm not going to play this. But I think if I went back, I think overall it would have been smart for me to do that because for the most part, those cards tend to be cards that we actually continue to see play over time. And I don't even know, do we even want to do Final Fantasy? Man, I'm just so about that set that I just don't even know if I want to do a set review for it because everything's just a wall of text and it's just what shakes out, the Tifa card, but I know that there are going to be some cards in there that are good and worth and worth getting. But I also don't want to steer people in the wrong direction with that set because it's so expensive, and the sealed product is so expensive. So I assume that the singles will be a little bit inflated as well. But yeah, I would buy singles. I think is the final answer. Like I would spend my time buying singles, and just making sure that I was making a more financially solvent decisions.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. I think that like anybody who could talk to their younger self probably is like, yeah, totally. Burn yourself out in your, mid to late 20s, and then you can enjoy the rest of your life because, you bankrolled so much when you had the stamina to do so. I'm like, yeah, system's broken, and that's how it would be great if we were just like, yeah, of course.
If you could just play Magic cards and not have to work.
I would tell my 18-year-old high school self going to college, I'd be like, dude, don't get a theater degree. Please just like go into fucking managing budgets or whatever, and then just go into finance, make a ton of money, and then like leave early on, never get so committed to like needing more than you ever actually need, and like you'll be fine after a decade, and then you can do whatever you want. Like, of course, that would be way better with an additional decade's worth of hindsight, and experience, and being where everybody is now. But I think the only thing you had 5 things that you would tell your younger self, aside from go into the money as a youngin, instead of like I remember as a kid being in the arts that there was something like aspirational about being the starving artist. It's like no, you do what you love, and you like
same thing as a journalist.
It was like a mark of pride to be like, no, you're the starving artist, but you're doing the stuff that matters, and you're doing what's worthwhile.
Well, if you're a rich journalist, Phil,
dude,
what are you doing as a rich journalist?
Nobody gives a shit, man.
You're serving the man if you're a rich journalist.
You want to know and in the world for yeah, it's true. This is true. In the space for like, if you wanted to do theater, your bottleneck is always going to be money, and so you'll always be panhandling, like asking the people who have money to let you do the work that you like aspire to do that you think will mean something. And it's like, if you just had the money, then you could spend it however you want, and then you wouldn't have to do that. So the starving artist like ideology was horseshit. It was all nonsense from the jump. So I would tell my younger self, just like, dude, look, like you as an individual aren't going to be able to change the system. Fucking get as much money as possible, and then you can use it in the ways that you feel are advantageous. But like the only thing that you'll ever have to grease the wheels is money. So like you need that if you want to do anything.
Social capital
of value.
helps as well. I think that
social capital
I got by
matters, but like
mostly
dude, you know
on
how much
social
capital you can get if you have money?
Yeah.
Oh my god, the amount of social capital.
I will say
capital for money.
The one thing I did right, I'll give you the one thing I did right in that era was to create Hipsters of the Coast, was to create a platform for myself to talk about the game, because that is the thing I think that has kept me playing the game for as long as I have, is to be able to be introspective and look back on what I've done with the game, and that led to this. And if I were to say, hey, go back and talk to myself about the podcast, I'd be like, do video earlier.
Zach, I'm so happy that you brought up the written Magic the Gathering outlet that you made way back when, because we made another one, everybody. So if you would like to write for anything that you like about Eternal Magic the Gathering, send it to me. Just literally write it in a Google Doc. Send it to me at ForceofPhil on any social, anywhere, Discord, whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, I will edit it. I will take care of it. You do not need to be a writer. It's for EternalDurdles.com. I'm happy to house and publish.
Become a Durdle Maniac.
Become a Durdle Maniac. Do like I'm happy to publish literally from your tournament report at your local all the way up to your tournament prep for big tournaments, to anything in between. Literally your thoughts on a particular card. Like when the Nadu ban was like looming and people thought that Nadu should go, like somebody wrote an article like defending Nadu and how it should stay, and now Zach is playing it as his main his go-to.
If you want to defend Oops All Spells, we hate that, but we will publish it.
But we'll publish it. We will absolutely like I like that like absolutely down.
I love
to
that
support,
you want to do that though.
I'm interested in that sort of like when we have the platform, so like people like will listen to us talk about our ideas. Hopefully every week, and if you're not subscribed, hopefully you subscribe. But like the people that don't have the time or access to be able to like hold a platform like this, like even though we don't have the most followers, we're the longest running legacy podcast there is. Zach. Yeah. Like somehow like
longest
we've been able
and
to do
most
it all this
prolific
time.
by a mile now.
We've been able to do this all this time. Like happy to offer a platform to others out there, and you don't need to be a writer. I literally am a professional editor. It is what I do. Like way back when I was like, oh yeah, you should have gone into money. I never actually did. I just went into sports journalism.
Used Phil's theater degree to further your writing career.
Happy to help out there if anybody's interested in having a platform that they want to write on, and you're welcome to write more than one. You're welcome to write anytime. I think the only you gave 5 things. I'll wrap this up by giving the only one thing that I would tell myself in regards to Magic, my younger self, is there's a moment where I fell for the style of control that was Top Miracles. I can remember walking through the hall where I was like, wow, this deck is the most elegant thing I've ever seen. The dexterity of moving cards around was just so aesthetic to me. I was like, I want that always. And at the time, when I felt that energy, if I could catch myself in that moment at that tournament hall, watching a proficient Top Miracles player like just move cards around fluidly, I would tap my younger self on the shoulder and be like, commit to Dark Ritual. And I would never have turned my back on Dark Ritual. And I think we would be better off if I was just a Dark Red gamer.
I would go back.
Henceforth.
Final note: I would go back and tell myself, quit chasing girls, start chasing cardboard. All right,
there you have it.
There you have it. Have a good one, everybody. Hey, if you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe button. It grows the legacy content ecosystem we all love by relaying to the platform that you are part of our passionate community.
And to go even further, click the links for subscription or to support directly via Patreon to help us create more content for you. Patreon supporters get 4 exclusive extra episodes per month. If you're listening on an audio platform, head over to patreon.com/eternaldurdles.
Thanks so much for your support.
We'll see you in the next one.